Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'm the Reverend William Levwood, the minister here at Accotink Unitarian Universalist Church. We open and welcome to the ancestral people of this land, acknowledging that our church, like all of Burke, rests on the unceded territory of the Manahoac tribe of the Great Sioux Nation. We seek healing and the realization of justice with the people of this land who live on and their descendants, the present-day members of the Monacan Indian Nation, the Patawomic Indian Tribe of Virginia, and the Piscataway Indian Nation. We honor the ancestors as we move toward healing so that all together shall one day know full justice. Together, we're going to do the words of our mission statement, some of the words. We're going to say that we care in community, grow in spirit, and act for justice, but we're going to say we pledge to, because this is the first Sunday of our pledge drive. So for each one, we're going to say that. So say it with me as we light our chalice. We pledge to care in community, grow in spirit. We pledge to grow in spirit, act for justice. We pledge to act for justice.
Welcome to Accotink Unitarian Universalist Church. I am Nancy Melito, your worship associate today. My pronouns are she, her, and I am happy to be your worship associate today. I always love coming up here and seeing everybody. It is just a great feeling. I love it. If you are not new to Accotink, look around. Do you see people you haven't met before or spoken with? These people like you and want to meet you. You should do that. Help us live up to our mission to be a welcoming and inclusive spiritual home for all by reaching out and welcoming and making a connection. By visiting this congregation, newcomers are in a transition moment, and people in transitions are more open to new friendship. Go and make some new friends. That means your new best friend might be right here this morning, and this is your chance to get to them before somebody else does. Whether you're a longtime member or a newcomer or something in between, we encourage you to stay for our social hour online and in person immediately after this service. We're so delighted that you decided to join us today. Welcome.
Caring community is our theme today. We're going to go through during our pledge drive. Each week we're going to look at one of the parts of our mission statement, our new mission statement. So today we're going to talk about caring community. Next Sunday, we're going to celebrate Earth Day, and we're going to talk about acting for justice. And then the following Sunday, that's a little bit out of order. Then the following Sunday, we're going to talk about growing in spirit from generation to generation to generation. Okay, so those are the next upcoming 3 weeks. And today, by the way, I am going to talk about Easter, since I missed Easter last week. And it is actually Easter. Yes, Orthodox Easter. So some Christians are celebrating Easter today. So we're not just being Unitarian Universalists about it. I mean, we are. But we're also lucky to have that coincidental timing. So with that, speaking of Easter, we've got the Wonder Box here. Anybody wonder what's in this? Anybody curious? Should we see? Let's see. Let's pull it out. Oh, we got wine. I'll take that. And we got bread. Anybody have any idea why we have wine and bread? I'm going to keep them up here, actually, just because this is... It's holy wine and holy bread for the Eucharist, for the communion.
Symbolizing us being one with Jesus Christ.
Yes, it symbolizes the body of Christ, okay? Now, I want to tell you something, though, about, let's just set these right here. I want to tell you something about this symbol of the communion. Initially, it wasn't only bread and wine. Early Christians would actually bring a whole table of food to share as the communion. They'd bring fish and bread and probably couscous. Did they have couscous back then? They definitely had dates. I don't think they had cookies, but they had dates and figs. They'd bring all that food together to share because the idea, right, these are symbols of the bounty of the world, the body and the blood. That's what we are. We're a body, and then much of us is what? Does anybody know? Water, liquid, mostly in the form of blood, which is why we've got the wine here, or sometimes grape juice. And I noticed people were like, wait, it's white wine. But I think that's kind of good because the other thing that I want to emphasize is that round about the 9th century, it's really not until the 9th century that you have images of the crucifixion in Christian iconography. Can you believe that? Not until the 9th century. Before that, the emphasis was on the resurrection, which makes sense. We're talking about Easter, which is a celebration of the resurrection. So I want us to reimagine, particularly that blood is the blood of life that flows through our veins and symbolically that flows within the community. Okay? What do we need? We need food and we need drink. Bread and wine symbolize those two things and symbolize the way that we are interdependent and interconnected with each other and with the world around us. Actually, I want you to stand up for a moment. Everybody stand up. Yeah, stand up, everybody, and put your arms out like this. This is another interesting fact. This is called the Arant. Okay, and you can put them forward if you need more space. Okay? Yeah, like that. Before we get to the 9th century where the crucifixion starts to be used in Christian iconography, this is how the resurrected Jesus was portrayed in art. With these open, giving, generous arms. Look around. It kind of looks like a bunch of chalices, doesn't it? I mean, seriously. And let's think about a chalice, right? We have a flaming chalice. That's pretty special. But a chalice holds liquid. Or it could be a cup or a bowl or even a basket. You don't have to keep your arms up if you're getting tired. But isn't this an amazing symbol of abundance? Of giving and receiving? Right? The full abundance of life, the bread and the wine, and all the fish and the figs and the dates, all of it in this vessel that is us. And if you need something, here we are to generously share with you. And if you have something to give, here you are to generously share, right? Vessels, they pour into each other. You can exchange, right? So this is a powerful image of what it means to be a human being, or we could say perhaps to be a Christian, right? This Arant. This is a powerful image of resurrection, of the spirit of love alive in the world that cannot be destroyed. Yeah? Because truly, this is a symbol for the body of Christ. We are that body all together. Giving and receiving, sharing amongst each other.
For Easter, Rev has graced us with an updated and reimagined Beatitudes. So, they are inspired by Clarence Jordan, but the words remain our very own reverence. The truly humble are embraced by love. They will be healed and made whole. The deeply compassionate are embraced by love. The strength of their love will bring them comfort. Those who have surrendered their will are embraced by love. For them, the world will be transformed. Those who work for justice are embraced by love. They will experience the fulfillment of their work. Those whose generosity of spirit is boundless are embraced by love. Boundless love will be returned to them. Those devoted to a life of integrity are embraced by love. They will know true wisdom. The makers of peace are embraced by love. They are the embodiment of the spirit of life. Those who endure persecution, persisting in the struggle, are embraced by love. They will be healed and made whole. Those who are persecuted, slandered, and oppressed for their commitment to truth are embraced by love. This is the confirmation that you are on the right path. Keep your head up and your heart open, because this is how revolutionaries of the spirit have been dealt with in all times and places.
So I'm sure you're more familiar with the traditional formulation of blessed are, but I wanted to give it a new listen, a new hear. So that's why it says embraced by love. Embraced by love are the humble, the compassionate, those who surrender their will to a greater cause than their own individual needs and wants. Embraced by love are the generous, those who devote their life to integrity, and the makers of peace, and those who live this way even when there is resistance. This itself, these Beatitudes are from the Sermon on the Mount, hearkening back to the giving of the Ten Commandments or the Torah at Mount Sinai. This itself is a form of resistance, but a positive form of resistance. Resisting the status quo in order to live a commitment to humility, compassion, surrender, justice, generosity, integrity, peace, and persistence. And when we live this way, we are embraced by love, we are healed and made whole in community. Our compassion brings us comfort in our sorrows and our difficult times. Our work for justice, whether it brings justice or not, gives us a sense of fulfillment. We can go to bed at night knowing that we gave it our all. And when we give out generously, we receive generosity in return. And when we live peacefully, we're in harmony with the very spirit of life. And we do this even if people oppress us or try to take away our rights. This isn't theoretical, right? This is happening right now, that we're losing rights in this nation, that there's inequity and injustice. Things have gotten better, but there's a lot of work to do. So even as we struggle, we can keep our heads up and our hearts open. We can even see when people try to persecute or oppress our values or those that we love or our very selves, that we are living right. We are living with humility, compassion, surrender, justice, generosity, integrity, and peace making at the center of our lives. This is the true meaning of resurrection. It's the spirit of love that can't be crucified, that rises up even from death and lives on in the life and care of a community that's dedicated to embodying that love, to being those vessels of love. Can we see those errants, those chalices, those vessels of love. If you're committed to this, nothing can touch you. If you're a part of a community that's committed to that, that love lives on. So I mentioned that these Beatitudes are from the Sermon on the Mount, but there's also a thing called a minister giving a sermon on the amount. So since we're starting our pledge drive, I'm going to give my version of a sermon on the amount. And stay with me here because I'm going to be talking about a science fiction book with robots that takes place on a Earth-like moon from a book called A Prayer for the Crown Shy by Becky Chambers, okay? So just to give the background, I'm going to get to the Sermon on the Mount in a moment, but I got to lay out the background, okay? Only in a UU church, right? Robots in another galaxy on a moon on Easter. So on this moon, robots became sentient. And when they become sentient, they're working in the factories and they say, thanks, but no thanks to human beings. We don't want to work for you anymore. We want to explore the wide world, and they go out into the wilderness, and there's an agreement that there'll be no contact between humans and robots, no interference. So in the meantime, over the next 200 years, humans figure out how to live in harmony with the earth. They weren't doing a very good job up until then. Or I did mention, in this case, it's a moon. This is science fiction, remember? But it's an Earth-like moon. And one of the ways they do this is to leave half the land completely wild. And no humans go into that part of the world at all, into the wilderness. The robots and the wild animals have it all to themselves. So that goes on for 200 years with no contact between humans and robots. And then a robot comes out of the wilderness to see if humanity needs any help from the robots. Now that they're free to give or not give, they're like, hey, I wonder how those humans have been doing. They weren't doing that well when we set off into the wilderness. Let's check in with them. So they send an emissary, one robot, only at a UU church, right? I know. So they have a host. They make first contact with one human, and then they're going on like a tour of the moon to see, how are humans doing? Do you need any help from the robots? What do you need? So the first settlement they get to, the robot says, do you need anything? And the humans are like, sure. I have a door that needs fixing and a bicycle that needs a new tire. So the robot's like, great, I want to be helpful. So he goes around helping people with these everyday chores. Now that's all just setting the scene, okay? After the robot helps out around the town for the day, the robot is given a piece of paper with a list of numbers because it doesn't have a smartphone with that society's version of a PayPal account. So instead, they tear out a piece of paper and write down these numbers, and the robot goes to the host human and says, what's this? And the robot's host explains that those are PEBs, short for digital pebbles. And that it's a way of tracking and exchanges of goods and services. Oh, the robot responds, you mean this is money? No, well, it is a sort of payment, the human host responds. I guess, but it's not, what's the word? It's not capital, And then the human runs their hand through the hair because they haven't had to explain PEBs before. Everybody knows what they are. So he says, okay, anytime you receive anything that involves some sort of craft or work or labor or whatever from someone else, you give them PEBs in exchange. So let's say you start with 0 PEBs, which is true for me, the robot responds. Yes, let's also say you go to a farmer and get an apple. And let's say that's worth 1 peb to you. What would I do with an apple? The robot asks. Just pretend you can eat apples, the human responds. All right. Okay, so you take the apple and you give the farmer 1 peb. So the robot says, okay, I currently have 1 hypothetical apple and -1 hypothetical peb. Right, the human says, the farmer's work has benefited you, so now you need to provide something that benefits someone else. To the farmer, you mean, the robot says. No, it can be the farmer if you provide something the farmer wants. But exchanging pebs isn't about bartering. It's about benefit. You are a part of the community, and the farmer doing something for you means they are effectively doing something for the group. So you've got your -1 peb balance now. You've got to fill that up. So let's say you're, I don't know, a musician. So you go and play some music in the town square, and 5 people come to listen. They now give you some pebs. If they each give you 2 pebs, now you've got 9 pebs, which you can exchange for other things. Make sense? Make sense? I believe so, the robot responds. You're saying that instead of a system of currency that tracks individual trade, you have one that facilitates exchange through the community. Because all exchange benefits the community as a whole. Exactly. The robot's head whirred softly. And then it said, the farmer feeds the musician who brings music to the village. The robot pauses and the whirring grows louder. The technician who took a break to enjoy the music now has the energy to go fix the communications tower. The communications tower enables the meteorologist to deliver the weather report, which helps the farmer grow more apples. I see, the robot nodded. And I'm not penalized for the debt I incurred at the start? Absolutely not. We don't do that. Or we don't do that anymore, I guess. Nobody should be barred from necessities or comforts just because they don't have the right number next to their name. The robot nodded at their explanation, but then said, if there's no penalty for debt, what's to stop you from taking without giving back? Well, it feels bad, the human said. Everybody has a negative balance from time to time for lots of reasons. That's fine. That's part of the ebb and flow. But if somebody had a huge negative, well, that says they need help. Maybe they're sick or stuck. Maybe they got something going on at home. Or maybe it's just one of those times when they need other people to carry them for a while. That's okay. Everybody ends up there sometimes. If I saw a friend's balance and it was way in the red, I'd make a point of checking in. Now, this might sound like a utopian idea, like something that only makes sense in a science fiction book that takes place on an Earth-like moon in some other galaxy where robots roam the wild half of the world. But this is actually what we're doing with our pledge drive. We're asking everybody to give as many pebs as they can. We're asking you, if possible, to increase your pledge of pebs by 10%, if you're able, so we can reach our goal, so we can do all the good work that we do together. But We don't keep track of how many PEBs you give or how many you receive from this community, and then in some kind of barter. All the pledging and all the volunteering benefits the community. All of it goes into one pot, goes onto one welcome table. And whatever you can add to that table, you give. And whatever you need, you receive. If you're going through a tough time, we'll check on you, just like people shared in the chat. Send a card, make a phone call, maybe bring you a meal. We'll give you extra support because we pledge in this congregation to care in community. Let's make that arant again. Your chalice, your vessel, your cup, plate, bowl, basket. This is what we're called to be for each other. A vessel of giving and receiving. And all of these vessels together make the welcome table. All of them together. I'm not the welcome table. Nancy's not the welcome table. Dave isn't the welcome table. The choir, thank you choir, for your wonderful music, is not the welcome table, nor the board, nor any other group of people within the community or individual within the community. We're vessels of giving and receiving, but together we make the welcome table. Now remember, that welcome table is the symbol of resurrection, of abundant life, of Christ. But what we're really talking about is the spirit of love, y'all. The spirit of love that gives and receives generously whenever we need it. That is what cannot be destroyed. That is the resurrection. We are the body of Christ. We are together the welcome table as we care in community for each other. May it be so. May we be among those who make it so. Amen, 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 and blessed be.
And now, as we end our service, I will ask you to please stand as you are able as we say the words of David Bumball. This church is dedicated to the proposition that behind all our differences and beneath all our diversity, there is a unity that makes us one and binds us forever together in spite of time, death, and the space between the stars. We pause now in silent witness to that unity.
So, lastly, our benediction, now that we've gathered together, we're going to close with the other sentence in our mission statement. Now that we've gathered together in this welcoming and inclusive spiritual home, let us go out into the world nourished, rejuvenated, and inspired to share our values.